So I know, at least personally, a lot of our students get hung up on like, what's my level? Like, can you tell me what my level is? Is it like B2 intermediate? And I normally try to turn them away from that, but I do think it's really, really important to know where you are, where you're going, like
Right.
what material is going to be good for you. Do you think that there's a way that students can do that without having a teacher tell them, like, okay, you are a B2 student, so you need this book?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, honestly, when I was learning Portuguese, I never even formally studied it. Like, I took
Me either.
lessons
Yeah.
for a year in Chicago before I came to Brazil, and then I never took classes again. I just kind of learned on my own. And I never once thought about, like, what level am I? Am I B2, C1, A2? Because that really doesn't matter unless you're trying to get a certain job and they want to know specifically what
Right,
level you have.
right.
But most of the time in those cases, they want you to take a proficiency test, anyways, in which you'll take like the Cambridge IELTS or TOEFL exam. So I think some people are a little bit more I don't know, systematic maybe with their studies, and
Right.
they like to know how many numbers and levels and all that stuff. I'm definitely not that way. And I take it you're not that way either.
No.
But I think what's more important than saying you're B2 or C1 is knowing what you're good at. Like I'm really, my listening comprehension is great. I understand like 95% of what I hear, and also knowing what you need to improve on. However, my vocabulary is lacking, especially in these situations. You know, the hospital, I had to go to the hospital and I didn't know how to say anything because I don't know, the names of the organs, or I had to buy paint and I don't know any of the names of these items that I need to paint my house. So we have to kind of just ask ourselves a lot of questions. And ideally, if it's things that you actually need in real life, they end up being more important and we're more motivated to learn them. Like if someone gives me a list of vocabulary about like car parts, I don't care about cars. Like I don't
Yeah.
know, I don't
I
even
don't
know the
know that
names
in
of these
English.
things in English. Like, I don't know. I'm not a mechanic. It doesn't interest me at all. Like I'm not going to waste my time learning this vocabulary when maybe I'm having a baby and I want to plan a baby shower. I'd so much rather learn terms like bottle and diaper and stroller than, I think we have to ask ourselves, and people tend to ask others before they ask themselves, like everything. What do you think about this dress? What do you think about my haircut? What do you think about my boyfriend? I'm like, who cares what I think? What do you think? And that's what we're in a society where everyone is being told what to think all the time. It's like this like excess of information. You need to think like this. You need to believe this. You need to do that. It's like, no, stop that. Like if anybody's telling you how to think, like cut them out of your life, because that's not the type of person you want around. Like you need to trust yourself and ask yourself, like, what do I need? What do I want? And then start there and then start looking for that information. But
Yeah, 100%. I always think about like when people 50 years ago still learned foreign languages with much less like high-tech information.
yeah, without apps and flashcards and automatic, like people ask, they truly believe that it's impossible to learn a language without like Duolingo or Anki or these spaced repetition apps. I'm like, I never used any of that. And like you said, years ago, like there's a lot of people who learned just by playing, listening to music or whatever it was. There's a million ways to learn. And we have to figure out what ways work for us the best. And that's very simple.
Yeah, I think your paradigm of enjoying the process, that's something that changes over time. Something that
Yeah.
at least a lot of students I've worked with maybe don't recognize. Learning a new language is like there's no end date. It's a lifelong project, quite literally. You're going to do it until you die.
Right.
So you have to figure out like, different ways to keep it interesting and
Yeah.
different ways to make it applicable to your life. And it just never stops. So people should go in clear-headed about that. It's quite a big thing to tackle.
Yeah. And I think that's the cool thing about it. You know, the more you learn, the more you realize, like, oh my gosh, there's so much more that I need to know. You know, like people who think they know everything are actually the people who know the least. And I mean, but this also applies with anything that you want to be really good at. There's no end. There's never like, oh, all right, I speak English, now I can stop. And if you do stop, you're going to lose it for sure. There's a saying that says, if you, there's no such thing as staying the same. You're either improving or you're getting worse. So people who think, oh, I'm just staying the same, chances are you're actually declining a little bit. Unless you're actively trying to improve, you're going to do the opposite. So no one has to freak out or do anything drastic, but you have to try to improve just a little bit every single day. And that's the fun part of it. If you feel like there's nothing left for you to learn, that's kind of boring, right?
Yeah, that was one of going back to your list of self-help books, you mentioned Atomic Habits, I believe.
Yes.
Which is a book we've talked about on the show. I'm sure we have at some point. But the idea of just incrementally improving, I think he says 1% per day, which is a lot. But if you can just shake things up and try to get a little bit better each day, that compounds. And
totally
over time, that turns into a really interesting life of crazy experiences and beautiful relationships.
Yeah. And that's really how anything is built. You know, nothing goes from like A to Z. It's just the accumulation of little things. And what I love about the Atomic Habits and thinking about 1% is it's very doable. So many people get overwhelmed. They think they have to move abroad or do something super intensive, which is fine. Like those are all great things, but it's hard to maintain that. You know, it's like if you want to get fit and go to if you start running 15 miles a day, sure, maybe you'll be able to do it for a short period of time, but you're going to get burnt out. You're going to get tired. You're not going to have time. But if you just focus on just a little bit each day, you can maintain that forever, easily. It just becomes part of your routine. And there's not so much resistance when you're trying to achieve your goals.
Absolutely. I think I can tie that in full circle to where we began this conversation and into both of our stories. In both of our cases, we did kind of have to do something drastic to get the journey started. We both kind of randomly moved to Brazil. But what kept us on this journey, in your case, marrying a Brazilian, in my case, my partner is a Brazilian as well. And that's like the motivation that keeps me just being with Alexia. I don't know. There's this idea of meditation of like freedom from freedom. So like too much freedom at some point can be really hard to manage. So once you get the ball rolling, then you're just playing the game. I know that's a very abstract concept, and I doubt many of our students will follow it, but I think it's important.
Though. Yeah. And it's so funny you even mentioned freedom, because I know for me, before we started the whole online thing, that was something that was like a really big personal goal. Like we had our school, which I loved. It was a wonderful experience. But when you have a physical business, you can't really move. You can't really travel or do whatever it is you want to do because you're kind of locked in there.
Mm-hmm. And you had a physical school in Campinas.
In Campinas. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. And working on the internet, you have the freedom to go wherever you want. As long as there's an internet connection, you can work, you can live, you can do whatever it is you need to do. But with that comes that like excessive freedom, like, oh my gosh, I have all these options. Where am I going to go? What am I going to do? And we felt that way when we sold our school and we moved online. We didn't know where we were going to live. We were like all over the map, and it was very stressful, and it almost felt like worse, and you have to decide, okay, this is my choice. I'm going to make it. And then I remember thinking, well, maybe I don't want freedom because this is like overwhelming and it doesn't feel good. But then the other day I was talking to another woman that I learned so much from, and she was actually, freedom is the ability to choose again, is being free from all those negative thoughts of this is overwhelming, this is too much. It's just basically, if I make a mistake, I can choose again. Or if this doesn't work out, there'll be something else there for me, and then just kind of, it's like basically freeing yourself from, maybe I'm making a bad mistake, or maybe this is the wrong decision for me. So yeah, there's a lot that comes with freedom. But I think what people think is just like, I want to be able to do whatever I want. Well, when that happens, it's actually not as cool as it sounds.
Yeah,
but
it gets you into a pretty like anarchist, nihilist place of mind pretty quickly.
Yes, it's pretty horrible, actually. You don't feel really good about yourself. But then when you choose, like the freedom to choose, okay, this is my choice and I'm going to make the best of it. And if I realize this is not a good choice, I have the freedom to choose again. Like that, to me, like makes me feel a lot better. But it's still tricky.
It's tricky, but that was beautiful. Okay, Jackie, I want to be mindful of your time, and I want to somehow finish this kind of winding philosophical conversation that we've had on a language note. If you could give some sort of recommendation about, like you just said, that you have to make a choice, and you have that freedom to make a choice. I think most people that listen to our podcast, it's in English, so they can understand English, but they're frustrated somewhere along the learning curve. What kind of, I don't know if it's a recommendation, a quote, an idea, a routine, but what's something that you would offer just to kind of push people to get them out of that kind of frustrated, stagnated feeling?
A quote that I always think of is, what you believe is what you achieve. And I think it's normal. First, we should never beat ourselves up or feel bad or feel guilty for being frustrated or feeling down or having these thoughts like, oh, I'm never going to learn this. Like we all do that. That's okay. But just let it go and try to replace that with something that helps you more. Try to think about something that you can do. Celebrate a small victory that you've had. Think about the progress that you've made. Just like be nice to yourself. A lot of times the things that we say to ourselves are pretty horrible. So we have to just be nice to ourselves, encourage ourselves, congratulate ourselves. Celebrate. Like maybe you don't know a lot of English at all, but you're learning, that's fantastic. Like nobody starts out. We tend to compare ourselves with someone who's like on chapter 10 and we're on chapter 1 still, which is never a good idea. It just makes us feel bad. But just really celebrate the journey and do that visualization, like really think about yourself in a positive situation, being successful, doing whatever it is you want to do, something simple. It could be helping a person in line at the bank, translating for them or giving them directions or I don't know, anything, all those little things. They make you feel. And it's not just seeing it, but it's like feeling that comes along with it. I know that has been tremendously helpful for me in so many ways. It's not just visualizing this like distant picture. It's like being it, feeling it, incorporating it. And that feeling will lift you up and pull you through. But yeah, I think that would be my advice to anybody who's going through a hard time with anything.
That's absolutely beautiful.
It's pretty simple.
Language is such an embodied, like emotional process. So you got to feel it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to add to that because you said it much better than I can. But thank you very much for coming on the show, Jackie.
Thank you.
Where can people find you? I think it's quite easy, but if they want to learn more about you, watch your videos, where can people find more of you?
Well, I do have a website. That's www.askjackie, JACKIE. A lot of people write Ask Jack. AskJackie.com.br.
Jackie. Okay, that makes sense.
With the IE at the end. Or YouTube. I'm Ask Jackie on YouTube. Instagram, I'm Ask Jackie BR. But I think if anybody types in Ask Jackie, it will come up. But yeah, Facebook, I have a Telegram group as well. But mostly YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all those places.
Yeah, I searched for Ask Jackie this morning, and it was quite easy to find a lot of.
There's a lot of stuff that pop up. It's pretty scary.
Well, thanks a lot, Jackie. It was a pleasure having you on, and hopefully we can do it again sometime in the future.
I'd love to. That'd be great.
Cool. Thanks.
Thank you.